ready? Are you 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 ready to get it? You ready for war? Live is back, are you ready for more? The waiting is over, it's time to get poppin'. We all wanna win it, just cash in the pocket. BB alive, nothing can top it. Fantasy's back, football's the topic. 50 down for 50 in profit. Boss at the top and we all wanna drop. I'm taking the spot, bury the coffin. Time for the action, enough of the talk. Time to get crackin', live is back. And speaking the facts, the champions boss is back to back. Don't happen that often, enjoy the throne. It's time to get off and welcome back. It's time to get started, time for the weak and the strong to be part. We're all in the war, fight to the finish. Mad about trades, but it's part of the business. Do what you need, it's all about winning. Try to be king on the division. Wanna be champ, that is the mission. White with the flow, this is tradition. Ready to go, time for the show. Roll your bloods, get ready to blow. Get ready to hear the good and the bad. You might not agree, but it's only on facts. If you get ugly, yeah, that means you're whack. Geno and Matt, finally we're back. Analyzing and sharing the stats, giving opinions and checking the facts. Keep it six, built to the draft. A league of 10, let's see who get last. If your team stinks, it belongs in the trash. Race to the end, try not to crash. No one agrees, all of us clash. Something like Titans, fighter gets smashed. You better contend if you wanna be champ. If you won't pay attention, you don't have a chance. No chance to win if you don't have a plan. Get a chance at the shit, better win if you can. Yeah, PPL is back, I hope you're ready. PPL is back, I hope you're ready. PPL is back, I hope you're ready. I hope you're ready.
And the regular season is at its conclusion. PPL Live, week 14. We are at the end of the finish line for a lot of teams, but for most of the PPL, there's still a chance. Still a chance of the dream of the Pantheon Cup. But before we get into the dreams and aspirations of the PPL playoff, let's take a look back to week 13, starting with the Argonauts getting their fourth straight victory, getting by the United Players of Destroyers, 146 to 65. The Baby Gas team spring the upset, get it done, 122 to Trey Fitty's 108. The Gaff Attack leave no doubt down their nemesis Patty's Twins, keep them on the edge of the playoff hunt. 177 to 140. Squad underestimated gets the win they needed, clinched the number 3 seed in the playoffs. 175 to only for the Boston 78. Huge shocker in the PPL. And the Skulls clinch a PPL playoff spot. Put down, appease the gods. 111 to 73. Alrighty, PPLers, let's start to take a look at our final standings projections presented by Snickers. Starting with number 10, the Baby Gas team coming off of their 3rd win of the season. At 9, we've got the Gaff Attack coming off their 4th win. 8, Patty's Twins, they're dropping. Snickers not feeling them at the end here. 7, Appease the Gods. 6, we got I Need About Trey Fitty trying to hold on. At 5, we've got the Skulls. 4, we've got the new Omega Conference champions, the United Players of Destroyers. 3, the Argonauts. 2, Squad, underestimated after that impressive showing. And at number 1, the defending champs, the Alpha Conference champions, only for the boss. All right, man, you see what they got here, Ulysses. What you think of what Snickers is giving us?
Well, Snickers down the end has a team falling out of the current playoff bracket with Patty's Twins. It's going to be interesting to see how that team responds.
Right. No, definitely. I mean, it looks like everything else has perhaps been settled in the PPL. Who gets the 6th seed? Who gets the last spot in the playoffs? Will it be Patty's Twins? And it's time to find out. They might have dropped the ball, but we'll see what everybody thinks. It's time to get good, bad, and ugly. Alrighty, Ulysses, man, let's do it. We're at the end of the season here. Some teams have found themselves on the outside looking in, may have dropped the ball. Some teams, they're looking great. What do you think of this week, good, bad, and ugly, my man?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a back-to-back showing for me. I mean, it's the Argos, the team now holding the hottest streak in the league. Winners of 4 straight. What do we always say, Geno? Gotta win those games in November and December.
Right.
They're going 4 in a row right now. And, as it stands, nobody's scoring on these guys. They've almost got 100 fewer points scored on them than the nearest opponent, the UP, who they just played and
Right.
they showed out on. I mean, this was good in so many ways for the Argo, not just because they got this game against a team that they played in some difficult games in the past, but what this did was essentially lock off a playoff spot.
Right.
I mean, let's think about where these guys were. I mean, you take away those last four. What was this team's record? 3-6.
Yeah.
So I mean, in October, I had these guys pretty much dead in the water, and the fact that with a week to go, they're in position, and they're scoring right now. So I mean, I think really where they're fitting in the current playoff bracket, I think that a lot of things fell the Argonauts' way this last week, and again, they're getting ready for a playoff push. It's looking pretty much assured.
All right, man. Let's hear it, man. What's your bet?
I hated to do it to them, but I called it, man. Patty's Twins, they lost to the Gap. I mean, these guys, they went out and left, no doubt.
Yeah.
Gap are showing us exactly who. I mean, we talked about it earlier on.
This is what we expected.
Well, after the draft, I mean, we thought that the Gap should have had a much better season than the record ended up showing.
Right.
I mean, when you look at this roster, like, don't look at the record, but look at this roster, and you think you're looking at a playoff team, right? And so it's disappointing for the Gap, but I'm telling you, they went out and showed out. And why do I say it's a bad week for the Twins? Well, hey, they lost to a nemesis. They don't want to ever lose them. They're losing to the Gap. Trust me, Twins don't like that.
And not at all.
You put up 140 points any week, you expect to win. I mean, it always sucks losing. It always sucks losing to the team that leaves no doubt.
Right.
It was like, it didn't matter what you were about to do that week.
Yeah.
Additionally, it puts them in a place where now they are definitely playing for that 6-seed playoff spot. And with this loss, they're playing only for the boss, who, we'll talk more about that. But I mean, it really took them in a position where they maybe had a little comfort, no longer.
Yeah.
And so it was a bad week for the Twins, not devastating, but definitely bad. We'll get to that in the ugly.
No. All right, let's hear about the ugly. What was devastating to you, brother?
I need about Trey Fitty. I mean, we've been giving the Baby Gas team a lot of shtick. And what did they do? They came out and probably delivered a bigger blow than the Gap. They knocked I Need About Trey Fitty out of the current playoff bracket, currently in the hunt.
Yeah.
And again, it just wasn't something I was expecting to see. I mean, this guy, he ended up doing some things to at least improve his scoreline. But what makes it ugly is you just start that 49ers coach and you do this.
Right.
I think maybe he thought that the Baby Gas team wasn't going to set the lineup, but that the lineup that he set wasn't going to be enough to get him. Travis Etienne getting 5, Jalen Waddle getting 1.
Yeah.
And then that HC position, I mean, you lose this basically because of this 49ers coach. I mean, that was the one thing that I think he should have done.
Yeah.
And again, it was just an ugly play at the wrong time, man. And so I think he's definitely got a fighting chance.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the playoffs go, Twins, you're winning, you're in. I Need About Trey Fitty needs to win and have a Twins loss. So
right.
I mean,
they need a little
gave
help.
away the driver's seat here. And so it was an ugly week for I Need About Trey Fitty.
All right, man. I gotta agree with you there, man. It was pretty bad for them. But they still have a outside chance, and that's pretty much all you can ask for, just to have a shot. On one end, I'm gonna go with a team that took their shot and ran with it, and that squad underestimated, man. I didn't pick them to win that matchup, but I did say they had a chance. They weren't dead in the water, and they really flexed muscle in a matchup that we might possibly see in the Pantheon Cup as they locked up that 3 seed. I'm looking at Justin Fields. Didn't have a particularly good day throwing the football, but was able to run for, I believe, a 50-plus yard touchdown. You know those 50-yard bonuses are gold in the PPL. Justin Fields is a guy that can hit that bonus over and over, as well as Saquon Barkley. Christian McCaffrey is going to start to get a lion's share of the usage now that Jimmy G's gone down. The rookie's going to really look to him, and that really showed itself in the second half of that Miami game. Tyreek Hill obviously looked awesome. Tyler Lockett, I mean, everywhere you looked, squad underestimated was getting points. One thing that they aren't going to be able to count on, though, is 44 combined from the D and the coach. That's really what set them apart in that matchup. But, hey, they got it when they needed it, and that was the perfect time for squad underestimated in a matchup that they looked like they could be dead in the water. Man, we were talking about them potentially falling out of the playoffs. Now they sit in the 3 seed. The great thing about being in that 3 seed for squad is they avoid a rematch with Only for the Boss. Although that they did give it to them this time, you never know what another week could be. They don't have to see them in the final 4 rounds. So that's a big plus for squad underestimated. And they look like a team that should be respected and feared. Whoever the 6th seed ends up being, they might have a tough matchup at the beginning of the playoffs, looking at squad underestimated. So squad flexed muscle, got into the playoffs, locked up that 3 seed, got the win against all odds in a lot of ways. So I got to give squad their props for that. My bad it was their opponent from that matchup, and that's Only for the Boss. And I'm not going to really even get into it because, I mean, they've been so stellar this season that it's even hard to go there. But we saw the downside of what it can look like when things aren't cracking for the Chiefs or when they're in a matchup that, you know, things aren't favoring them. I'm looking at that double tight end set, 4.6 from Travis Kelce, 3.2 from George Kittle. I mean, just not the rewards that we expected. You and I both praised that connection. Now, that connection actually outscored the flex and the tight end for squad. So that may not have been where the problems was, but I'm sure that's Only for the Boss expected a lot more from those 2 players. And here's another reason why it was a bad week for Only for the Boss going forward. Deebo Samuel and George Kittle lose Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I liked how Purdy looked, but I feel like the way he looked favors Christian McCaffrey more than anybody. That's a definite downgrade to both of those players, and that's going to probably affect Only for the Boss down the stretch. Other than that, they still have they're still the number 1 seed. They're still in total control of the PPL, and if they can get back to how they've looked in weeks past, this will be nothing but a blip on the radar. But it was a bad week in an otherwise stellar season for Only for the Boss, and it has to be acknowledged that 2 of his top targets lost their quarterback. And my ugly, man, I'm going to have to go with the United play as the Destroyers. This was a matchup. This was the prestige matchup of the week. And you put up 65 points. I mean, it was embarrassing. The coach loss with the Dolphins. You can find a better coach situation than that. I think they were trying to rub the Argonauts' face in it a little bit, and their face got rubbed in it instead. I'm looking at the Mike Gesicki play, 0 points here. Tom ended up with 19, but Derrick Henry, who's supposed to be the breadwinner in this offense, only got 4.8. But let's really talk about why it's so ugly for the United players, the Destroyers. They locked up the 2 seed. They're the new Omega Conference champions. Congratulations. But I think that's the apex of the season for them. I do not see this team getting out of the final 4 round of the PPL playoffs, just based on what I'm seeing. The loss of Cooper Kupp, it was basically a harbinger of doom for them. I don't see them being able to keep pace with squad underestimated or whoever they might see coming out of that wild card round, let alone in a Pantheon Cup matchup with Only for the Boss. I just don't see it happening for the United players, and that's why it's ugly. This team made the playoffs, got to the 2 seed, but it's not going to be the season that they expected with those kind of lofty titles. But that being said, here we are. We're in the present now. What's past is prologue. Week 14 is upon us, and it's time to dive into the Week 14 action. And we start with a huge matchup in our interconference week of the Chaos Week, starting this week as we go with squad underestimated of the Alpha Conference, taking on the Skulls of Omega. All right, man, last week we predicted this was going to be the prestige matchup of the week because we anticipated a squad underestimated loss to Only for the Boss. Squad said, not so fast, my friend. I'm actually taking that victory, and this matchup for him is pretty much a moot point. On the Skull side, a win here would pretty much clincher, secure the 4th seed. What do you think of this matchup, man? Skull squad underestimated. Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, two of the most athletic QBs in the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was really impressive to see what Squad did last week.
Yeah.
I would also, in the same breath, say it's about time. You know, preseason, I really hyped this team, and I'm fortunate that they did win because, again, I was going to look silly if the team that I predicted didn't even get to the playoffs. Like, not a good look.
Right.
I think that what they showed, though, it is some potential. And, again, you're not going to get the same point line from the D and the coach. However, you pointed out a lot of things that Squad has to look forward to. I mean, the Justin Fields experience, I mean, he's not going to get it this week, but down the playoff stretch that he's now clinched, that guy's going to be really hard to just compete with as far as a solid point line. Right. He's the 7th at the position, and he's basically, you know, getting that on the ground.
Yeah.
Saquon's looking good, and I'm in complete agreement with you in the situation with San Francisco. Devastating for the team, the franchise. I mean, again, I think that I don't know how they bounce back. I mean, Purdy did hold it down. I mean, good on him.
Yeah.
It's just hard to sustain that, and so we're going to see, you know, what the guy's about. But I absolutely think it favors Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
I look at this line, and I mean, the one risky play I would say is Squad. There's a better coach out there than the Raiders. There's too much inconsistency. I get that it looks appealing against the Rams.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't be that confident when I'm looking at the other guys, Bills going against the Jets. Now, the Jets have been pretty good, but, I mean, I think that the Bills get it. I mean, We're talking like, you know, the divisional, we're going down to it. The Bills want to get that.
Right,
so,
definitely.
I'm looking at Josh Allen, looking at Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, this is probably my rookie of the year.
Okay.
This guy is probably going to be a keeper for the Skulls. I can't imagine him not.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase is coming back at the right time. I just think that Squad's got more going on right now. And again, I think that he's really well situated. I mean, you just mentioned it. Really what that win last week, statement win, again, props to Squad. I'm happy that he's feeling himself. But again, like, we need to see this be sustained. And this, we're going to learn a lot in this matchup.
Yeah.
But he essentially locked the 3 seed up, which means, again, you win your first playoff game, you're playing UP, which, I mean, I think great job exposing what was so ugly about last week there. I just think that it means that if you get into this spot, you're really well positioned to make that push for your first PPL title. And again, I think that he can make me look good if he starts it off with the Skulls, and I think he does.
Okay.
I think Squad gets this one 133 to the Skulls 121.
No, I'm with you, man. I think that Squad underestimated gets this one, and this one could potentially drop the Skulls down to the 6th seed if Patty's Twins wins their matchup. Skulls would drop to actually 6, and this would be a rematch in the first round. So Squad could actually, as I'm agreeing with you, they're going to actually win this matchup and possibly see this team next week in the first round of the wild card weekend. I'm looking at Saquon Barkley against Philly. That's one place I feel like you can still expose Philly. Now, the Titans, to their undying stupidity, did not attack that Philadelphia run defense very much, even though they had Derrick Henry. I think Saquon Barkley will be able to gash that defense in certain places and make that matchup actually a little more competitive. And Squad's going to reap some benefits and rewards off of that. I'm looking at Christian McCaffrey. He's supposed to get a huge workload the rest of the season. He's going to go back to early Carolina day usage for Christian McCaffrey. The Niners are going to ride this stallion into that NFC Western Division title because that's all they're going to have if they're going to have any chance of doing it. Tyreek Hill in a plus matchup on Sunday Night Football to close it out against the LA Chargers in what has got I think a 52, one of the higher over-unders. Like I said, many of them haven't been hitting that number this year. That one has. And I'm also liking the Jeff Wilson play, as well as Tyler Lockett. That's looking good. On the Skull side, I love Josh Allen. I love Ramondre and Jamar Chase. Other than that, nothing else really is impressing me. Deshaun Watson, I'm talking about now, looked extremely rusty in that return to the field. Now, it was his first game back. Could be a little bit of jitters. Might be able to knock him out. But now you're going to play the defending AFC champs in their house, and they're one of the hotter teams in the league. I do not like the Browns' chances in that matchup, and it may be tough sledding. Amari's not known for playing well on the road. That being said, in the end of the day, I just like what Squad Underestimated was able to do in that matchup. I mean, even the week before when they lost to the Argonauts, without the coach loss, they still would have had a respectable line in that matchup. So Squad's scoring is still consistent. They're number 2 in the league in scoring right now, and I think that holds true in this matchup. I got Squad Underestimated getting this one. I say the Skulls keep it competitive, but Squad pulls away in the end. Squad Underestimated gets this win on Monday night behind Kyler Murray, 134 to the Skulls, 122. And moving on to our next matchup, we go into a matchup of the the number 1 and number 3 picks in the draft currently. We got the Baby Gas team of the Alpha Conference coming off of only their first Alpha win of the season, going up against Appease the Gods, who faded down the stretch. All right, man, BGT actually comes into this matchup looking pretty good on the score line. They got the big win. They played Spoiler Sport to Mr. Spoiler Sport himself, Trey Fitty, on Appease the God side. They were trying to hold on for dear life, but the Skulls put them out of their misery, man. Lamar going down. It was almost like a microcosm of Appease the God season. They go as far as their Achilles goes. What do you think, man? No Lamar. Appease the Gods going up against the BGT and Joe Burrow, who's looking very mighty himself.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the point in the season when both Baby Gas Team and Appease the Gods can look at these campaigns and really see a lot of similarities.
Okay.
They could see a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
A lot of guys on both sides did not fare well.
Yeah.
But more than anything, I mean, there was a lot of questionable decision making that went throughout the season. Baby Gas Team just getting apathetic.
Yeah.
Appease the Gods just making moves that were really unnecessary, and I think that ultimately just showed where their headspace was at the beginning of the season and persisted through the draft. Like it just didn't ever come together for either team.
Yeah.
And so really, I'm not going to waste too much of our time on this because it doesn't matter. Neither of these teams are in contention. I'm going to say that the BGT actually maybe gets a win in the wrong time and maybe shifts up their playoff positioning here. I'll say that draft positioning. I'm sorry. I think the BGT actually gets this one with the current roster that's in. Joe Burrow's looking good at the right time. So is Josh Jacobs. I'm looking to see which of these other guys might show out and show BGT some keeper potential. But I've got them going 112 to Appease the Gods 104.
All right. Man, this one's actually a tough matchup to pick. I like the Huntley play for ATG. They went with Huntley last year when they lost Lamar down the stretch, and he was serviceable. I think that he'll be serviceable again. But that being said, I mean, BGT, out of nowhere, they come up with a big win. BGT made no mark on the 2022 PPL season until week 13. That win was one of the bigger spoiler wins that I think we've seen in a long time in the PPL. Neither of us saw that result coming. Neither of us even thought BGT would set their lineup, and then they do, and they get the victory in a matchup against a Trey Fitty team that at one point we thought I thought they were a shoe-in for the PPL playoffs. So that was a crazy result. And I mean, hats off to BGT for making an impact on the PPL season this year. They don't normally do so all the time, so hats off to them for that. In the end, in this matchup, do they set their lineup this week? Who knows? It looks like it's a coin flip whether they're going to do it or not. I'm looking at Joe Burrow. Obviously, is going to have a great game against Cleveland. Josh Jacobs, gosh, can you imagine if BGT was in contention? how scary Josh Jacobs would be to see coming down the stretch of the season. This guy has been like a wrecking ball for the Baby Gas team. And, I mean, he's been he was keeping them in matchups where they weren't setting their lineup. So Josh Jacobs alone is a big, big problem for Appease the Gods this week. On their end, it's more of the same. I mean, there's guys there that can get dumb, but there's also guys there that you don't know if they feel like getting dumb. I'm looking at Mike Evans. I'm looking at Devontae Smith. These are two of probably the more maddening guys to have because of the ceilings that they have, but also the low floors, and because they're in offenses where other guys can also eat. At the end of the day, I like BGT just a little bit more. I say they maybe they find a tight end at 950 like they did last week, and they get this matchup. I'll say 108 to Appease the Gods, 102. And moving on to our next matchup, we go into a matchup of huge consequence for one team and of no consequence at all for the other. We've got Alpha's I Need About Trey Fitty taking on Omega Conference champions, the United Players, the Destroyers. All right, man, so obviously Trey Fitty is scratching, clawing for life. Didn't expect this. They were cruising in at one point. This team was, I believe, 6-4. Now they find themselves at 6-7 on the outside looking in for the United Players. At one time, it looked like they were going to be a team that could have dropped out of this thing, but they found a way with a little help last week from the GAF to win that Omega Conference title. What do you think of this matchup, man? United Players, Trey Fitty.
I mean, you said it, man. Trey Fitty's been in free fall, losers 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Really could have rocked the playoffs up with any wins in those weeks. It was not looking good. As I look at some of the moves, I'm kind of questioning what's going on. I mean, I think that some of these moves are unnecessary. Jared Goff, I mean, maybe he's seeing something in Minnesota that I'm not. I mean,
right.
You know, Jared Goff played Minnesota earlier this season. It was relatively pedestrian. You know, he's going young throughout the lineup. I mean, Chris Godwin, I think, is probably gonna be the guy that shows us, you know, what's up. Jalen Waddle maybe has a bounce back week. Love the Cowboys D, but I don't know if I would be trusting the Titans coach right now. After what I saw last week, I mean, there was some questionable coaching going on. You mentioned it. Everybody's been able to run all over Philly, and you got one of the best running backs in the league, and you don't figure that out. I don't know if I'd be trusting the Titans at this point in the season.
Yeah.
With that kind of, there's just better options. I mean, we saw this with some other guys too. But look at the other side though. Again, UP, I don't think it's much better. I mean, we really touched on this. This guy not having Cooper Kupp. Jimmy's not a factor anymore.
Right.
It matters. I mean, these guys, I think, you know, Tom's not the same guy. I think that San Francisco's game is going to be defensive, and I think that they're going to be able to figure that out.
Yeah. Now,
you look down this, I mean, UP could easily win this. They could easily win this, but again, I don't think that they do.
Oh, okay.
I think that I need about Trey Fitty. We may not see the end of the lineup maneuvers that he's going to try. He's got a much younger team, and I think has a lot more looks he could do here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think that he's got more to work with. And I think that he's going to force the Twins to have to win.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, you know, Trey Fitty, although they have been skidding, I think that a UP team that is just not who they were earlier on in the season is what they need. And hey, they're going to do their part to try to get into the playoffs. I think that they get this ultimately, but it's close. I think that they win this one 118 to the UP's 116.
I'm with you, man. In the end of the day, I think Trey Fitty probably should be able to lock up this win. Although I'm with you, I don't get the Jared Goff start. I love Dak Prescott against the Houston Texans. I know that they're running the football a lot, but he's also they're also going to be throwing the ball. They like to run the score up. They've been doing it all season long. So I think that that's probably a guy that they may want to get right back up into their lineup. But, you know, they're going to do their thing, and that's what's got them to this point so far. I'm looking at Garrett Wilson. This guy is continuing to be a late season playmaker. If Trey Fiddy's able to get into the playoffs and make any noise, Garrett Wilson's going to be a big reason why. This guy's definitely going to be a keeper for him. And good on him, because he's went very young this season and he's found a way to find guys who are a viable keeper potential. I'm looking at Travis Etienne as well, and Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin is a target hog right now. He's the apple of Tom Brady's eye. And he had a touchdown actually called back. I thought that Godwin actually had a chance to actually rescue Trey Fiddy at the end of that matchup. Wasn't meant to be, but that does show the potential that this team has as far as having a dependable playmaker. On the United player side, man, we saw it in the matchup with the Argo last week. I mean, if it doesn't get cracking, it can get really bad for them at this point. Cooper Kupp was a huge source of points for them, as was D-Hop. They get D-Hop back this week. He's not in the lineup as of yet. And they get Mike Williams back, probably most importantly. He's been a guy who's been out of their lineup all season long, a guy that they could definitely use. If they put those two in the lineup, that definitely changes the dynamics of this matchup, because I do like the Dolphins against the Chargers, but I don't like that Dolphins defense. The coach is fine. The defense, I don't think is a good play. I'm with you on Trey Fiddy. Jacksonville might jump up and bite the Titans. You just never know with those AFC South matchups, and it is a divisional game. But at the end of the day, I think Trey Fiddy does just enough to get by, snap that losing streak, and get into the playoffs with a huge clutch win over a conference champion. I got Trey Fiddy getting this matchup 117 to the United players 111. And moving on to our next matchup, we go into a matchup of past championship lore. We've got the Argonauts taking on the Gaff Attack. All right, man. So obviously this is a rematch of Pantheon Cup 2. These two teams also have clashed in the Final Four on a number of different occasions. The Argonauts obviously come in 99% chance. The only way they could fall out of the playoffs is if Trey Fiddy was to outscore them by 150 plus points, and the Argonauts were to lose this matchup and Trey Fiddy were to win. That obviously is probably not going to happen. So the Argonauts are virtually a lock to be in the playoffs. On the Gaff side, this, like you said, this looks like a playoff roster. This looks like this is a matchup we should be seeing next week. Instead, we're seeing it in the playoffs week this week, a grudge match from Pantheon Cup 2. What do you think it is for an Argo Gaff Attack?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Gaff got the high note win of the season with the Twins last week.
Okay.
When I look at this matchup, I mean, again, I've talked about it earlier. Argo's getting hot at the right time, and the Gaff again have just not.
Okay.
When I look at this, the options too. I mean, essentially the Argos roster is essentially healthy. I mean, Elijah Mitchell's been on IR for a while, and I just look at the other side, and you know he's got some questions. Kenneth Walker may not be 100% this week, and again he's got the bye affecting him in quite a few positions. So, I mean, I think ultimately, I look at the other side, Justin Herbert. I think he could really do something against Miami. I mean, we saw what Purdy did last week.
Right.
I can't imagine Justin Herbert can't do just as well. I think the Minnesota guy should be all over Detroit. Tony Pollard against Houston, yes. Dalton Schultz, I mean, they scored a lot of points last week, and he didn't get involved. I think maybe he has a bit of a bounce back this week.
Okay.
Does get involved. The one thing I'd probably change if I were the Argo I'd probably throw in the Eagles D against the Giants.
Okay.
I think it's a divisional game as well, and I just think that I mean, to me, I think it could be a better matchup. But
Okay.
I mean, again, Denver's terrible. It's Russell Wilson, so I mean, he don't really have bad options here.
Right.
When I look at the other side, again, Jalen against the Giants, I mean, that might be a tougher matchup. So I think that the in different circumstances, this could have been the prestige matchup of the week. It just didn't turn out that way, and I think that the Argos solidified their playoff position, and they made it into the playoffs, but they definitely are hitting the harder half of the bracket. I've got the Argos winning this one, 129 to Gaff Attack's 112.
All right, man. I'm gonna agree with you. I think the Argonauts get this one. I'm looking at the matchups, and no, I'm with you. I'm looking at the two Minnesota guys going up against that Detroit defense. That's got a high over under also this week. That one's over 50. If the game's over 50, you can expect some points to come out of that matchup. And you know that offense funnels through these two gentlemen. Detroit, Dalvin Cook finally gets a break in the run defense category. He's went up against some brutal run defenses the last few weeks. The Detroit Lions are probably his first break in the last month. Justin Jefferson also should thrive in this matchup. But, of course, let's remember early in the season against Detroit, Justin had his worst game of the year. So I expect him to definitely bounce back. He'll have that on his mind and be looking to have a good game. Where this could switch, though, however, is when the Vikings get into the red zone. If that rock flips to T.J. Hawkinson, that could be a sneaky way for the Gaff to steal some vital points from the Argonauts, who need those points once the Vikings get into the red zone. I do like the Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown connection. Now, this is a divisional game. Things will be a little bit tougher. The Giants are actually pretty good against receivers throughout the season, so they could potentially slow A.J. Brown down. But, I mean, he's an absolute matchup nightmare, and he can bust any matchup. So I would be on the lookout there. This matchup is really going to turn on which trio of receivers do better. I don't think two teams offer a better trio of receiver matchups that we can ask for. We got A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, and CeeDee Lamb against Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, and T. Higgins. That is a lot of firepower. The Gaff could definitely stay in this matchup, but I think the Argonauts find a way to get it done behind a strong game from Justin Herbert, and I think that they get strong backfield play out of Cook and Pollard. I got the Argonauts getting this matchup in a spirited contest here, 134 to the Gaff Attacks, 127. And moving on to our prestige matchup of the week. We got a big one here for one of these teams. What else is new? A lot on the line when these two teams square off. We got a rematch of Pantheon's Cup 12 and 13. The last two Pantheon Cups split between these two teams, the last two champions. Alphas only for the boss, taking on Omega's Patty's Twins. All right, man, last year these two teams won their conferences. The year before that, both of these teams made it to the Pantheon Cup. A true renewal of the rivalry. However, it's become one-sided. Only for the boss, since that Pantheon Cup victory by Patty's Twins, has won the last 4 matchups, man, including Pantheon Cup 13. What do you think of this one, man? Only for the boss and Patty's Twins. Twins need a win or a Trey Fiddy loss to make the playoffs. Only for the boss, after that loss, obviously will not be in a charitable mood. What do you think of this one, man? Boss Twins.
Yeah, man, this one really lives up to the billing, I think. I think Only for the Boss is really going to be coming in with some displacement aggression, right? They really got shown out on last week. Again, no real knock on their campaign. I mean, everybody's due for one.
Yeah.
Again, I just know that he didn't like it happening against Squad in the way that it occurred.
Right.
Now, looking at the lineup, I think that the Denver matchup for KC is just prime. I mean, I really think that they go out there and they shine against a team that is struggling hard.
More displaced aggression.
After the big offseason acquisition of Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb's going to have to be involved. Miles Sanders is going to have to be involved. I love Stephon Diggs. I mean, this guy has just really developed a rapport with Allen, and it's just not looking very stoppable.
Okay.
Now, I do share your concerns with Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, and what that's going to look like from Purdy. So I think that is probably the biggest question mark to me. But I mean, again, he still produced. So I think we can see, and maybe he does switch. But I think that we're pretty much seeing Only for the Boss's lineup. I look at the other side, and I think GENO has a great game against Carolina. No reason he shouldn't. Austin Eckler, he's been a workhorse all season. I think he's leading the league in tugs this season.
Yeah.
Damian Pierce, other guy that could be Rookie of the Year candidate.
Yeah.
Keenan should factor. Amon-Ra St. Brown is looking like a keeper. Don't know who Greg Dulcich is. If I'm looking at flex spot, though, I'm probably going with Perrine. I like what he stepped in. Well, I should say if Mixon doesn't go. If Mixon doesn't go, Perrine is the guy.
Easily.
I think what she's really going to miss is having the option to have Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan really was the highlight of when the Twins were on the other side.
Surge, yeah.
Ever since, Only for the Boss got the Pantheon win.
Yeah.
He's just been really bossing up in this matchup, and I think that she needs a guy like Jonathan Taylor to push her over the edge.
Yeah.
And it's just not going to be there. I don't like the Jets D against Buffalo at Buffalo. Cowboys should roll. I've got Only for the Boss actually leaving no doubt, really, again, going after it. I mean, looking at where the average is at 141 and they're projecting 118 here, I don't see the discrepancy, and I think they do more towards their stat line.
Okay.
I'm going to go, I'm thinking Only for the Boss goes 145 to the Twins 127.
All right, man. I'm going to go the other way with this one, man. I'm picking the Twins to come up with the clutch win and exercise a few demons and get into the PPL playoffs, man. I'm looking at Geno Smith's matchup against Carolina at home. Geno's quietly having a Pro Bowl season, man. As quiet as kept. He's doing a great job steering that ship, and he's got 2 Pro Bowl receivers helping him along the way. I think this will be a matchup where Geno can actually show out a little bit and put himself into comeback player of the year gap out territory. So I think this is going to be a big game for Geno. Austin Eckler, like you said, he's Mr. Touchdown leader in the league. Miami, they can't stop anybody. Like you said, they let Purdy look good. Justin Herbert should look great, and Austin Eckler should also look very good in that matchup. Expect him to do a lot of what Christian McCaffrey was able to do, catch short passes and potentially get into the end zone. Damian Pierce needs a bounce back, and there's room to run against that Dallas defense. Jonathan Taylor looked decent against that run defense, and they've been giving up runs all year long. Where they've been able to really hurt teams is by forcing you to get into passing situations, and they can unleash that pass rush. I think Damian Pierce is going to get a lot of run early in that game because they're going to try to keep it close, try to keep the ball out of Dallas's hands. It's not going to end up working, but if Pierce can do some damage early, the Twins may be able to reap some rewards from that. Keenan Allen's a great play. Him and Eckler's going to be a great combination. The Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, what is there not to like about this guy? He's showing to be QB agnostic. I mean, because if he can do this with Jared Goff, if Detroit somehow found a really good quarterback, the sky's the limit for this kid. Greg DeLuke is actually the tight end for the Denver Broncos. He's caught some passes, and the one position that we know Russell Wilson will try to get it to is the tight end, so I like that play there. They got to figure something out at flex. Now, on Only for the Bosses side, the reason why this matchup, I feel like I could pick the Twins is because I think at Denver is going to be a little bit tougher as far as the defense goes. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to have a game where he throws for 400 yards and 4 TDs. I think that Denver's defense is going to try their best to keep that game as low scoring as possible. And they may be successful at doing that for a short while before Kansas City ends up pulling away. So I'm not picking the Chiefs to lose by any stretch. But I do think that they can keep the stat lines a little lower just in hopes of keeping the game closer. Nick Chubb at Cincinnati. I expect that game to get into a situation where the Bengals get ahead and Cleveland's going to have to pass, meaning there will be a lot more Kareem Hunt on the field. Stephon Diggs and Sauce Gardner are really going to go at it in that matchup. And Sauce really was able to erase him in that second half of that matchup and was the big reason why the Jets were able to upset the Bills in that previous game. I'm not feeling the passing game in San Francisco right now with Purdy. A lot remains to be seen with him, although, Debo can obviously get it done on the ground as well. Travis Kelce should bounce back, but Pittsburgh against Baltimore, Travis Huntley is quietly a pretty good backup, and I don't think Pittsburgh is going to be able to tee off on him. He gets the ball out of his hands, and he can run with the football. At the end of the day, I got the Twins. scoring a major upset to get into the PPL playoffs, breaking that losing streak, and not allowing only for the Boss to end their season for the second consecutive year. I got Patty's Twins winning this matchup 132 to only for the Boss's 129. Alrighty, PPLers, thanks for another great week of PPL Live. I had fun. I hope you did too. Another regular season in the books for us. Next time you hear from us, it will be to preview the PPL playoffs. Wow, what a regular season. I'm hoping you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. But for everyone that's still on that playoff hunt, good luck. Have a good weekend, and may the odds be ever in your favor.